On August 14th, 2008, Signature Living was born out of recession. Within 6 months, we had 6 apartments. And after 2 years, we bought the whole block, which was 12 apartments. We then realised we were onto something, so we decided to build 2 more 16-bed apartments in Matthew Street. And then we decided to go into hotels, and we bought our first hotel on Stanley Street, which at the time was an 11-bed hotel, and within 6 weeks we turned it to a 110-bed hotel. And then a year on from there, we got on 30 James Street. From a building that was deadlocked for 30 years, we took it on. After 6 months, we had the whole site opened. And then from there we went to the Shankly Hotel. Once finished, will be a 790-bed hotel with 3 restaurants, a rooftop conference facility for 500, a wedding venue for 500, and 2 amazing rooftop gardens with 2 swimming pools. We are a developer that gets the development done in really quick time because we have our own team, our own architects, our own QSs, our own plumbers and joiners, and that creates a really good united team that pushes in a project quicker than anyone else. Normally for our hotels, we get a project done in around 6 months, as opposed to QS's timescales of 14 months. The other one is obviously we're an end user in that we are a hotelier. That makes it a lot easier for the process for us being builders, developers, and a hotelier all rolled into one.
We can go after these amazing quirky buildings that a lot of more corporate mainstream type operators traditionally wouldn't have touched. It's difficult for them to unlock them because the way that they do their projects just doesn't fit. It doesn't overlay with those buildings. Signature obviously take a much more bespoke approach. At the end of the day, if somebody's already doing something, we probably won't want to replicate that as a business.
The projects that we take on are projects that no one else can make work. There is always a deficit, and it's always a deficit which is in the millions. Cardiff is a perfect example. The GDV for that building, the end price, is around 35 million, and the QS cost to build it out is 42. So there's a £7 million shortfall. Now, years gone by, you'd be able to bridge that gap through a grant, or the local council would in some way find a way to give you the funds required to finish the site. The problem is councils don't have those funds and grants aren't available.
But what quite often happens with councils is they kind of become the de facto custodian of many of these buildings, and sometimes it's a double-edged sword for councils in that they're often damned if they do and they're damned if they don't. You know, these buildings that have had a colourful past, people are often very emotive about them, and our product and the way that we approach the buildings that we've tackled today fits very, very well with what to an untrained eye would usually look like a big problem that we're walking into, but for us it's a huge opportunity.
It's not about 40 million quid, it's about so much more than that, because it's the catalyst for the whole of second phase development, which has been talked about by everyone for 25 years. And the thing I'm impressed with with Signature Living is, I know all this, but I know all this because I've been here 30 years. Signature Living have come down and grasped it in one. They've looked at the building, and instead of thinking, oh, we can stick a sky tower up the back there with 400 flats on it and everything, they've got it in one. They're incorporating all the old history, which is why they've got people like Gaynor Legal on board.
For me, this is the best resolution for this building. It's bringing it life, it's taking it back to its glory, it's making it look good again, and it's making it used. It's a win-win situation.
I'm really positive about the development taking place today. It's important to have a proper start to the work. Part of my concern in the past has been that if we can't see work starting, the building becomes more expensive to renovate, so less likely to happen. The best future for this place is if everyone looks to a future where it can be successful. And from my point of view as well, not just preserving the heritage value of the fabric of this building, but the wider heritage value of Butetown and the former docks community and people that are still here. So I'm really pleased to see Butetown History and Arts here as well. The fact that they can have new storage and exhibition space in the future too. So a positive start, and I'm looking forward to seeing Signature keep their promises to deliver local jobs, apprentices and a real future for this fantastic building.
It starts with us looking at the building, seeing what it stands for, keeping to that DNA, albeit with a new set of clothes, and then pushing it out to a whole new cluster of people that have never known about it or understood about it. And they get engaged with that building once again. And I think that's more interesting and intriguing than any other new style hotel that gets built from the ground up. And I believe that there are many buildings which are listed which can't be knocked down, that can be brought back into use and almost be a social beacon, not only for the building but also for the city or the town, bringing new people to it that wouldn't normally come, that may have a reason now to revisit. Maybe Liverpool is probably the perfect example, where people haven't been here for many, many years and now they're coming back in the droves. And I'm not saying that it's all because of what Signature Living have brought to the city. I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is that we've certainly helped.
I tend to think of Signature Living as the unofficial tourism board for the city. So 50% of what we do is not about, there's not a commercial angle in it. It's about the city. I think at the moment we're outperforming the official tourism board in terms of reach and engagement on social media. We get more visitors to our website, and that's what's driven it from, you know, 0 in 2008 to over 500,000 social media followers in 2016. And I think that apart from the football clubs and a couple of the local newspapers, we've got one of the highest social media followings in the city.
There are bed factories up and down the UK that are mainstream brands, and they're all the same. It doesn't matter what city you're in, you wouldn't quite know if you're in one of their hotels. Whereas it's really, really nice to have that little bit of something extra without ramming it down people's throats, that if they want to take up on in their own time and understand a bit about the place that they're in, the culture, the heritage, you know, the stories and whatever, it just makes them feel more connected to the city, and it just adds that extra layer of value that probably a lot of the more corporate entities are not in a place where they can extract that value, because they rely purely on who they are.
The people that come and stay in our property are our marketers. They're part of our marketing team. They're doing that job for us. 30 James Street, for example, 3 years later, we are still discovering new stories about 30 James Street and its history and its connection with the Titanic and the people, and we're still creating new stories now that people are engaging with and saying, I didn't know that, I've never read that. And I still believe that we'll still be creating new stories in 10 years' time about it.
I think we're the only company in the world that does the three heads. We develop, we operate, and we put out the stories through social platforms. And I don't know of another entity such as us anywhere in the world. No one wants to cast their eye around the city and see derelict buildings that aren't in use. There are very good developers out there, but most of them don't like the idea of taking on an old list of buildings and the issues and the problems that brings to the game. Whereas we're quite happy in that arena. We love old listed buildings.
Finding buildings is one thing, getting the funding to do these buildings is another thing, but getting somebody who will operate them and operate them really, really successfully and really make the most out of them to enable everything else to stack up by bringing the money in that pays the investments back or mortgages back or funding back or the council for the cost of acquiring the building is the operator. And what you get in Signature first and foremost is somebody who was born as a hotel operator. Everything else that's come with us thereafter is a retrofit to an amazing place that we started from.
There are a large amount of local authorities around the UK that have buildings which are listed, which cannot be knocked down. What buildings do you have that do not make economic sense?
What councils gain is, first and foremost, these buildings, they're doing nothing economically whatsoever. They won't be attracting business rates. A lot of them will be listed, they'll be exempt, all the rest of that. Straight away, that's revenue generation when the hotel opens that can go straight back into local authority purses, and obviously councils are increasingly rewarded now and economically motivated to boost the business rate take with the recent changes in legislation, so that'll be a box ticked. The economic impacts by spending 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 15 million on these buildings in a construction context is clearly there to see. And Signature, we're very big on local labour, local materials, local supply chains. We're about creating partnerships with local people.
Not only are we creating a lot of income in the build process, we're then creating a lot of income for the bars, clubs, restaurants and stores that relate to that area. And in Liverpool, we brought in £24 million worth of ancillary spend above and beyond what we brought in as well with our guests directly to us. And how we know that is because Our searches that we get, of which our website gets 3.5 million searches per annum, all the people that search for us, or 85% of those people that search for us through a signature word. So it's either signature living, signature hotels, signature apartments, which means that they knew about us before and they were searching for us. They weren't necessarily searching for the city, they were searching for us first. And that's why we know that the ancillary spend wouldn't be here in this city if it wasn't for signature living.